Hi, thank you for watching Dig into China. I'm Dong Shang. Last year, on one of the northernmost air bases in the world, Russia's military laid the final stretch of reinforced concrete on a runway to make it long enough to handle modern jet fighters and strategic bombers. This is Nagurskoye Airbase. It is located on a largely ice-blocked archipelago in the Arctic Ocean, a once abandoned staging point for Soviet aircraft. Now it has become one of Russia's most advanced military outposts. It is one in a string of new and refurbished bases meant to service the Kremlin's ambitions in the resource-rich Arctic. Those bases were combined to form a new military district in January under the command of the Northern Fleet, Russia's foremost Arctic naval base. The fleet has its headquarters in the Kola Bay near the Arctic city of Murmansk, 800 miles south of Nagurskoye. Russia's MiG-31 warplanes have been landing in Nagurskoye since last year, and the new military district is receiving its own fleet of Su-34 fighter bombers. The goal is to project Russian power in a region where Washington is lagging. An aircraft taking off from Nagurskoye could reach the U.S.'s northernmost military base in Greenland in under an hour, and New York in around 2 hours. Rebecca Pincus is an expert on the Arctic at the U.S. Naval War College. She said, Russia is working to use the Arctic to regain its great power status, and in doing so is becoming much more of a potential threat than it has been in decades. As polar ice recedes, oil and gas reserves, as well as new sea routes, have become more accessible, and Moscow has moved to consolidate control over a region it sees as vital to Russia's economic future. For Moscow, it is the last geopolitical battleground where it holds an advantage against Washington and Beijing, both of which are trying to expand there. Under President Vladimir Putin, the military has become an indispensable tool of foreign policy. In the Arctic, which is fraught with territorial and legal disputes, the armed forces are working to push the boundaries of Russian control. With Russia's western Siberian oil fields projected to decline in coming years, Moscow is looking to the Arctic as a source of new hydrocarbons. In 2019, the Northern Fleet said it had discovered 5 new islands amid melting ice in the Kola Sea, where Moscow has increasingly been exploring for oil and had claimed them for Russia. The military has renovated other airfields across Russia's northern coast and deployed S-400 air defense system and a state-of-the-art radar to complicate potential advances from NATO countries. In the Kola Bay, the Northern Fleet's new class of nuclear submarines is meant to ensure that Moscow maintains an advantage underwater. New military icebreakers, potentially armed with cruise missiles, will soon be traversing Arctic waters. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said in April, competition is growing between the world's strongest countries for access to resources in the Arctic Ocean and the transit routes. Thanks to measures taken, the Northern Fleet is able to effectively withstand the challenges and threats Russia is facing in the Arctic. Mr. Shoigu said last year that the armed forces had embarked on expeditions to collect geological evidence to support Moscow's claims to underwater territory expected to hold oil and gas reserves. It is up to the United Nations to decide whether the underwater structure, the Lomonosov Ridge, is part of Russia, Denmark, or Canada. The U.S. has recalculated its own Arctic strategy, pushing plans to put more fifth-generation fighters in Alaska than anywhere else in the country, in an effort to overwhelm the threat from Russia's anti-aircraft defenses. Former President Donald Trump ordered a fleet of military-grade icebreakers to be completed by 2029 and at least 2 international basing locations be identified for the vessels. During the Cold War, Washington made contingency plans for Soviet planes coming over the North Pole to bomb the US, but later refocused attention elsewhere. When Mr. Putin came to power in 2000, the Kursk disaster, in which 118 sailors died when a submarine exploded in the icy Barents Sea, come to symbolize the decay of Russia's military might. However, with Russia having funneled billions of dollars into its armed forces since 2010, the US is working to catch up. The Kola Bay, which lies above the Arctic Circle, houses closed military cities as well as the Northern Fleet's submarines and specialized docks for ships repairs. Russia's only aircraft carrier, Admiral Kuznetsov, stands in the waters awaiting renovations. The fleet received this year the first of 5 Yasen-M nuclear-powered submarines, armed with cruise missiles, according to Russian Defense Ministry officials. Those vessels are expected to give Russian pilots better stealth capabilities with a more detailed view of the North Atlantic and Arctic seabeds. For Russia, the control of growing sea traffic in Arctic waters is a national security priority, and its new military-grade icebreakers, together with its fleet of Su-34 fighter bombers, are meant to keep watch over a planned new global shipping route. Moscow sees those waters, which it has named the Northern Sea Route, as a shipping route connecting future Arctic oil and gas fields with consumers that will cut the time it takes to travel between Asia and Europe by around half. More than 1,000 ships plowed the waters last year with liquefied natural gas or cargo, 25% more vessels than in 2019. Late last year, standing aboard a nearly 500-foot-long nuclear-powered icebreaker that Moscow has touted as the biggest in the world and with the ability to cut through 10 feet of ice, Mr. Putin said that Russia's continued superiority in the Arctic depends on its ability to control the waterways of the far north. Mr. Putin has said the sea route lies in Russia's waters and therefore the Kremlin should be able to regulate its traffic, if necessary, by force. The US and China, however, say the waters are international and should be open to all. This has set the stage for a potential conflict with China, which has participated in multi-billion-dollar gas development projects in Russia's Arctic. Beijing is interested in the Northern Sea Route as an alternative to shipping lanes in the politically fraught South China Sea. The Kremlin worries that China, which has described itself a near-Arctic nation, may encroach on its interests. Beijing plans to build its own nuclear icebreakers that could navigate the Northern Sea Route, potentially without Russian permission. Russia has taken steps to prevent the Chinese from gaining too deep a foothold, such as scuttling their plans to construct a deep-water port in the northern city of Arkhangelsk, according to people with knowledge of the situation. Vasily Kashin is an expert on Russia-China ties at the Moscow-based Higher School of Economics. He said, Russia will try to keep a balance between having Chinese on board but without sacrificing its own rights and sovereignty in the Arctic. And it's their military, which still outstrips Beijing in the region, that they hope will guarantee that balance in the future. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly.